Hello again. Welcome and welcome back. My name is Eric. This channel is called Report and Opine. Today is Sunday, February 16th, 2020. And last week, Wednesday, I spoke a little bit about some of the corruption in California, the tip of the corruption iceberg, as it were. And one of those stories just keeps on giving, right? So Mohamed Nuru, the former head of the Department of Public Works out in San Francisco, who's going down on some corruption charges, we're now learning that the current mayor of San Francisco dated him. Now, she will have you believe that we dated very briefly 2 decades ago and we remain friends to this day, and I was very surprised to hear about what was going on. Yeah, right. Nobody's buying it. Absolutely nobody's buying it. And she says that in the spirit of full transparency, she's going to disclose in her upcoming financial statement about the city that she received a gift of $5,600 from Nuru to help her get her car fixed. It doesn't make any sense. You're the highest paid mayor in the country and you didn't have enough money to get your car fixed, so you borrowed it from the corrupt public works guy? What? If anybody is purchasing what Mayor London Breed is selling, I've got 3 bridges in Brooklyn to sell you. These people are so corrupt, it's awful. She doesn't even really deserve the position. She only became mayor because the former corrupt Chinatown gangster, Ed Lee, died at a Safeway while he was mayor. So the whole thing is a complete mess, literally a mess in San Francisco, and they will probably just point the finger at Trump like, because he's exposing them. He's exposing them. And they have nothing but their shield of racism to protect them from actually doing the work and fixing the city. And speaking of corrupt Democrats, we have 3 House Judiciary Committee members, 3 of them, one being Jayapal, who's squad adjacent, right? So she's kind of like the squad mom. Now I think Ilhan Omar and Rashida, I think all 3 of them outside of Ayanna Pressley have faced some sort of ethics complaint. But now there's 3 more, one being Jayapal, who's facing these ethics complaints about campaign finances or social media funding or something weird like that. Loads of the links in the description. Go ahead and read it. But also, fun fact, they were all tied up with Bloomberg and endorsing Bloomberg and taking money from Bloomberg. So that man is really, literally trying to buy his way in. And it seems like he's had his eye on this for a long time, even back when he said he didn't want to be president. And also, he's now saying that he might consider Hillary Clinton as his running mate. So watch out, guys. I can't stand Mike Bloomberg. I don't know if I made that clear. He is the worst. He's the male version of Hillary Clinton. He's absolutely awful on so many levels. Now, everybody wants to talk about the stop and frisk, but I don't think that's the worst thing he's done. But moving on. Speaking of corruption, we've got a little bit more corruption from the right. So we have Big Steve Tracy. He goes by Big Steve. He used to be in the WWF. He ran for mayor of East Haven, Connecticut last year, and he got pulled over recently and caught with more than 200 oxycodone pills in his car. So again, to take it back to my last video about how I think maybe, just maybe, some of these politicians are wrapped up in the drug trade, this kind of solidifies that, right? Now, I can't prove any of it for a fact, but it all makes sense. And speaking of sanctuary cities, we got Bill Barr and Trump really out here sending these special forces into these sanctuary cities to clean all the places up, right? Which they need. I'm out here doing my taxes today thinking like, well, if I got to do it, you should do it. Misery loves company. You can't just hop over the fence and not pay any taxes and go to work under the table. Get out of here with that. It's all a complete mess. Then we've got 2 shootings up in the Bronx with this crazy man, Williams, who shot 2 police officers. And then after they wrestled him down, they tackled him down, roughed him up a little bit. He said from his hospital bed that he would do it again. Now, I don't know if this is, directly related to de Blasio's new bail reform thing that seemed to be backfiring. And even he realizes it, even he admitted it. I don't know if they're related, but it's not looking good, bro. It's not looking good. Also, we've got the launch of the Black News Channel, the BNC. Now, I don't have cable, so it doesn't really matter, but this is supposed to be a 24-hour international Black News Channel. Of course, the launch didn't work properly. It was supposed to launch at a certain time, and there was bugs and kinks all over the place. Didn't get off the ground as it was supposed to, but I think if you really want to target a specific group of people, then maybe make some smaller local outlets that could really target the communities. You're just going to paint the whole broad brush black and white, like the black people here are the same as the black people in the UK, the same, you know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense if this is really supposed to be an international news outlet. What are they going to do, just cover the NBA? It doesn't make sense. Anyways, moving on. We've also got 4 Chinese hackers named in that Equifax data breach from a couple years ago. Now, this also, I believe, is Bill Barr's doing, so he's cracking down on the sanctuary cities, and now he's cracking down on these hackers. And I think it's hard for me to look past all of this as a coincidence. So you have the hackers, and China's been known, they're notorious for stealing intellectual property, but you have the hackers, you have the Hong Kong protesters, and now you don't hear about the Hong Kong protesters because, of course, they've been eradicated by coronavirus, apparently. So I know they seem like they're not correlated, they're not related at all, and I can't prove that they are, but it's just very hard for me to just gloss over it and pretend like, coincidence. Seems a little weird, but what do I know? Tinfoil hat stuff, right? Moving on. We also have the Democrats trying to count again up in New Hampshire this time. They're going head-to-head, or I guess Trump's going head-to-head with them, doing his rally on the same night in the same city, or maybe separate nights, but the same city, whatever. Doesn't matter. They're clearly going to steal it from Bernie, which, I hate that I'm condoning the Democrats cheating, but we do need to stop Bernie. The people who want Bernie don't realize that it's not going to work. It's just not going to work. You're really putting your faith in a man that has 3 houses, wrote a book, made $1 million, and says that we need to tax everybody. His plan doesn't work. His plan works if you're literally 100 years old and spend 3 days out of the week in the hospital. Medicare for all. Dude, I don't spend that much time in the hospital to want you to pay for it. And I certainly don't want to pay for anybody who does need to spend 3 days a week in the hospital out of my money, right? It doesn't make any sense. Also, we heard that Jussie Smollett, of course, is facing 6 new charges, and the media is quiet on it. They don't want to talk about it because that was their golden child, and all the Hollywood elites were, justice for juicy, as Dave Chappelle would say. But then on the opposite side of that coin, we have Roger Stone, who's a really old man, and they're trying to basically put him away for the rest of his life because he lied to Congress, of course, in an investigation that was completely bogus. So when Trump tweets about it, Pelosi jumps out the window again and starts talking about second impeachment. You tweeted, you're like, what? Nancy, sit down, have another glass of wine, and just chill. You're remember the days? Does anybody remember the days when Nancy Pelosi was against impeachment because she said it had to be bipartisan? What happened to that? Now she's standing behind him, ripping up the speech and screaming about a tweet. You had a little bit of sense, Nancy. What happened? Anyways, we've also got another little bit, speaking of how, the mainstream media, the CNNs of the world, don't want to cover that Jussie's facing new charges. And this is also looking really bad on Kim Foxx up there in Illinois. Kim Foxx, of course, the district attorney, I believe, who wants to blame the whole thing on Trump. I'm not joking. She says that this is an election year and Trump's trying to make me look bad. It's like, no, dude, you did it to yourself. You and London Breed. How can you continue to point the finger? You gotta point the thumb. You gotta look in the mirror. But they won't do it. They'll never do it. Anyways, there's 2 attacks on some Trump supporters. So one guy drove his car into a Trump tent of people out in Florida registering other people to vote. And then CNN says, the authorities are looking in to if this was politically motivated. It was a Trump tent with Trump supporters registering people to vote, and the kid drives his car through it, gets out of the car, gives him the finger, and says, I hate Donald Trump, and CNN says, we're looking into the motive. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And there's also a 35-year-old man who smacked a 15-year-old kid who obviously didn't even vote because he was wearing a MAGA hat. But media's silent. Imagine that. Imagine if somebody wearing a MAGA hat smacks a 15-year-old kid across the face. That would get played for at least a week. There was a kid wearing a MAGA hat who stood there smirking, and that got played for 2 weeks. Remember that? I know you remember the Covington kids. Anyways, moving on. Speaking of the left, again, I don't want this to just be about the corrupt craziness on the left, but what else is there? I talked about Big Steve. He's on the right, so, tit for tat. Anyways, the leftist Hollywood war between Snoop Dogg, Gayle King, Lisa Leslie, which Lisa Leslie's just kind of a victim in this, but she's involved, and Susan Rice. So Snoop Dogg jumped out of the window after watching Gayle King's interview and called her all the names in the book, threatened to send his homeboys after her. And, of course, Gayle King said, oh, it was deceptively edited. I'm like, well, okay, but you still just kept pressing and pressing and pressing, trying to get Kobe Bryant's friend to tell you that he was a really mean guy. Come on, man. We knew back in the day that Kobe didn't do that stuff. Yeah, he cheated on his wife. That's awful stuff, but come on. Come on. You don't think he could just make one other phone call and get another girl who's down with it? Give me a break, dude. And you kept pressing her and pressing her, and then Snoop Dogg got angry, and then Gayle got angry about what the network did, and then Susan Rice came in and said, you need to apologize. And Snoop crawled back with his tail between his legs and apologized. It really is a circular firing squad, right? I mean, the purity tests, they continue to administer them. People keep failing, and then they get canceled, and then they apologize, and then the system, the cycle repeats itself. It's insane. And then we've also got Dwayne Wade. Dwayne Wade. Now, this one triggers me through the roof because we have Dwayne Wade, former NBA star, champion, as it were. So if anybody knows that there's a difference between a man and a woman, it's Dwayne Wade. Let me ask Dwayne, hey, D-Wade, would you really want a woman on your championship team because you thought they were going to help you play the best defense against the competing NBA championship caliber team that you beat? Or do you think for 1 second you couldn't hop over to the WNBA and dunk on all 5 women at one time? You should know there's a difference, but your Hollywood wife, Gabby Union, has filled your brain with this nonsense, dude. So Dwayne Wade, in promoting his new documentary movie or whatever it is, makes the television rounds, selling his movie by telling the whole world his kid's a tranny. It doesn't make any sense. Now, where's the real mother of this child? Because Gabby Union is a homewrecker twice over, so she can't be trusted. And she also complained about toxic masculinity and racism at her last job at America's Got Talent. So she's talking about toxicity on the set and, racism on the set, and now her stepson is transgender. She's just playing all the cards, just trying to get into another movie, I guess, just playing all the Hollywood cards, and Dwayne's just eating it up like, yeah, I guess my 12-year-old son is a girl. I want all the information. No, you don't. You don't want all the information, because if you did, you'd tell your son what's really happening and that it's not real. But you don't want all the information. You're pretending. It's all pretend. It's all make-believe Hollywood land. That's what these people do. But you're selling a movie, so I guess it's par for the course, right? Transgender 12-year-old. If the kid's 18 or 19 years old and says, Dad, I want to live an alternative lifestyle, fine, so be it. But he's 12 years old. You're going to let him get face tattoos? You're going to let him drive around in a car? No, you wouldn't do any of that. You're going to let him drink beer all day? You're going to let him eat cookie dough for breakfast? No, you wouldn't do any of that. But as soon as he says he's a girl, you're like, all right, idiots. Moving on, we got another little bit about some more trannies up in Connecticut, because some actual girls, some biological females, are suing to make sure that the boys don't get into their track and field competition. Now, I think there was a boy, a teenager, who was on the men's track team 2 years ago. He's placed in 8th and 9th, and now he's a girl. He's on hormones, and he's coming in first. And they don't want that. They're trying to put a stop to it. So good on them for standing up for themselves, because, I mean, there's a difference. It's okay. It's okay to admit that men and women are different. If you want to go co-ed, if you want to do some co-ed sports, some intramural type stuff, that's usually pretty fun. But to have real hardcore competition where scholarships and championships are on the line, and you just put a boy in there and expect all the girls to just beat a biological boy, it's insane. Now, of course, a girl can beat a boy. Sometimes it's not all or every, but the odds are just not in their favor. So you used to come in first, now you're coming in third because there are 2 trannies in your field. It's a complete and total mess. And then we've got a little bit more about Democratic corruption up in Baltimore. The former Mayor Pugh, who I'm sure you remember, who said, ooh, you can smell the dead animals, back when Trump called out Baltimore for being rat infested, and all the talking heads on CNN said it was racist. And then, of course, the clip floated up of Mayor Pugh talking about the infestations. Of course, she's black, so your narrative kind of goes out the window. But on top of that, she's corrupt and has been for many years, I'm sure. She's not the mayor anymore, so that's not the point I'm making. But this goes back. She wrote a book and did some sort of weird tax scheme with the children's book that she wrote, and she was laundering or funneling money through some fake boutique that she had. But that's par for the course. That's what these people do. They're so corrupt, it's through the roof. I'm glad that some people are finally starting to see through it. And speaking of see-through, we've got Michael Avenatti and Tucker Carlson. Good on him for seeing this a mile away. He called him out. I mean, just roasted him. And then later invited him to the show and roasted him right to his face. Put the creepy porn lawyer Chiron up on it. It was hilarious. And now Michael Avenatti, who was, he was a Democratic contender. Brian Stelter and the ladies at The View thought he had a great chance at being president because he had such a great television presence. He was a total dreamboat. Now he's been found guilty on all charges of trying to extort Nike for money. Not to mention, stealing money from his clients, this, that, and the other. The man is a complete see-through scumbag, and I think he's going to jail. So that's it. That's all I got. Enjoy it. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening.